Hello, true duelists. My name's Craig Fee, and here's what's made news this week. Joshua Schmidt banned from having opinions for being too good at Yu-Gi-Oh! It's the holy trinity of Yu-Gi-Oh! Decks. Robot, dragons, anime girls, and cat parfaits? More amazing products you wish you could get that Konami will not be giving to you. Is it the end of the bug? Maxx usage on the decline in Master Duel. Yes, welcome to the Yu-Gi-Oh! Update, and we start with this week's top story, Mid-Core Yu-Gi-Oh! It's a term with a very loose definition, similar to that of rogue decks. It really often is most just saying the thing that I'm playing. I'm in that sentence, of course, referring to whoever is talking regardless of whatever it is they're actually playing. Fiendsmith Punk isn't meta, I'm playing a mid-core deck. Digital bug? Yeah, that's actually great if you know what you're doing, and that's the real deck for mid-core players. They're a sort of thing that's existed for a long time and have also been dying frequently. I think mid-core players first died in 2014 with the introduction of pendulums. They were then killed again during the 2017 introduction of Link format. They died again in 2022 with the release of Master Duel, and as a matter of fact, they died again right now when I shot them off screen. Truly a tragic turn of events. Thankfully, the conversation had the parameter set by the tweet and video that brought up this conversation in general, that being Team APS's discussion going over why it is so many people are leaving Yu-Gi-Oh! In particular for other games. Because if you haven't noticed, other games like Lorcana, One Piece, Digimon, or one of Bandai's other 42 unique card games, they're here and they're pretty popular to varying degrees, especially that one with the Hat Man. That one's very popular. And as players are leaving and other card games are growing, the discussion in our community has grown as well. You can now, if you so choose to, watch someone and comment on that video, and you might even well be watching someone watch me to comment on this. Truly, watchception. In particular about the discussion was the opinion of one Joshua Schmidt, a pro player and Yu-Gi-Oh!'s leading authority on Schnitzel, because we simply have to find a way to stereotype Germany in every single video, don't we? No, we don't. Anyway, Josh's core opinion on the discussion, one, why it is people don't play as much, and more directly, where cards like the new 6 Samurai support are meant to be played, drew some ire. Lord knows if you're taking 6 Sam to a YCS, you really aren't gonna win. As a matter of fact, it's more appropriate to say, you're gonna have a bad time. That's right. And you might say, well, why not go to regionals, Ben? But then really, regionals can be a sort of practice for a YCS, in which case you can expect to see top performing decks, and if you're facing top decks while playing 6 Samurai, well, we just said it. You're gonna have a bad time. That's exactly right. Which leaves locals. But again, if you're in an environment where decks like Ryzeal are being played, the 6 Samurai player, just simply put, is gonna have a bad time. No getting around it. So where do you play this stuff? I have the cards here framed on the desk. I own it, but where can I take this to play it and not just lose immediately because I'm playing 6 Sam like an idiot? A huge part of the appeal for this game, I think, is the eternal format and the fact that you can play your deck for years and years if you want to, and while power creep is generally accepted, if the new set can't even give me new cards that are brand spanking new, like 3 months old, if these things can't get me a win, why am I incentivized to want to buy it or play it at all? The comment Josh made that I most disagreed with was that people aren't really leaving because they can't play their pet deck, because anecdotally, I've had people in my circle that play this game leave for that exact reason. I meet up and play casually to this day with 2 friends, and one of them is mainly on Fire King and the other one's mainly on Dragon Maid, and I can see it in the Dragon Maid player's eyes that we need to find some tamer, lower level decks, or he's just gonna bounce, because he wants to play his favorite cards and stand a chance. But if he can't do that, then his options are to either find a brand new deck to buy and play, or just stop playing entirely, which is the other big topic of hand, because either people are leaving at that point or it's the price, and price is a huge aspect of the game because the cost of the hobby dictates who can enter it and who can keep up with it. The largest complaints about Ryzeal, Fiendsmith, Fualos, and the engagement ring my wife wanted are all the same. It's the damn price. Listen, babe, you can't get a real diamond, okay? Steve down at Locals is playing Fiendsmith, and Papa needs some Fualos's to stand a goddamn chance. Take the ring you'll get and just deal. I'm literally a gamer. Having to pay for a new deck constantly to be top tier is one thing, and I think most people understand it. But having to buy a new deck constantly to not endlessly lose is something of another, and again, that gets worse when even your new support can't get your old deck to stand a chance. I think a huge appeal to this game is the fact that I can play my pet deck year after year, and while I don't expect to win YCSs with it, I can at least hope to hone my craft, laser in, and get some sneaky wins with it. Things like Six Samurai, Mermail, Gladiator Beast, and even Speedroid. Countless other decks that have or are getting modern support, which hopefully would be able to stand a chance, but just realistically don't, because good God, have you seen the one-card combos? Tier lists are generally used to define strengths, and while they work in general, I feel that the past few years have really shown a difference in what the tiers actually represent. Like back in the day, Infernoid was always a lower tier than Necroz in Duelist Alliance, but Necroz was only ever twice or maybe 3 times as good as Infernoid. Infernoid could still scuzz out a win from time to time. Harpy was always weaker than Bujin in the Hat era, generally speaking, but it could win. You could find a route depending on, your deck building, your dedication, and the skill level of the players. There were factors. But these days, the sheer strength of things like one-card combos and the power of decks off of one card, allowing them to fit an abundance of hand traps, mean that Ryzeal doesn't feel like it's 2 or 3 times better than the next best deck or something like Six Samurai. It's 10 to 15 times better. We're talking orders of magnitude of significance, and it just kind of snuck up relatively quickly in the grand scheme of things, or at least it certainly feels that way to me, and I assume many other players. This is the meme, I think, that's used to clown on Josh a little bit, and while it is a pretty funny one, I think it kind of demonstrates what it is I'm getting at. Circular was a stupidly good card and rightfully criticized, but now there are more and more circulars in the sense that more and more cards for decks can do so much more off just one singular thing. And an engine like Fiendsmith comboed with Ryzeal makes it so 6 Sam players are going to end up being fun Beamon players. Fun Beamon actually is a lot like Digital Bugs as a deck when you get to it. You get it? The Digimon? Digital monsters? It's because both decks suck donkey dick. They they're trash. By far, the most shocking thing about Josh, I think we can all agree, is that he is an actual human being, and not in fact simply a character meant to entertain me on my computer screen, or more accurately my phone screen as I'm falling asleep. What do you watch before bed? I go with German Man. I do empathize with his take, though, for what it's worth. I can feel what it is he's trying to say. There's not really anything that we can do to show Konami that the price is the issue beyond simply leaving the game and not buying product, or arguably maybe supporting sets exclusively like Rarity Collection, but we're getting lost in the weeds at that point. The point is, price is a massive talking point, but there's only so much that we can do about it. And so if you're someone who wants to just sit and play the game, he's gonna sit and focus on the game. He wants to focus on the mechanics of it and the design of it and how good or bad is Fualas really and how interesting is the Fiendsmith engine. Because yes, price is a massive factor, but it's not the only factor, and Lord knows we don't want it to be the only factor. So I can understand and see where he's coming from. He wants to talk about the game because it's a game. But while that is a very real and genuine opinion, it is a matter of fact that a lot of people can't even afford the cards to get into the game. And if you can't afford to get into the game, you're not really going to care about how good or bad Fiendsmith is on the macro level, because that's just a disconnect that can't really be overcome. And that's no fault of Josh, to be clear, but me being or trying to be sensible about this is simply not really that funny. And this joke failed because I was meant to say that this video series is meant to be a joke. What a tremendous failure of a sentence. The point is, I brought up Josh for 2 reasons. One, entirely for clickbait. I'm not a YouTuber, baby, okay? We clickbaiting out here, okay? We put him on the thumbnail. Lord knows you want to see his face and him talking more than you do me, am I right, gamers? But the second reason is because it seems that his take was the biggest takeaway from Paul's discussion for whatever reason, so it's somewhat valid to focus on him. And so, instead of proposing any form of actual viable solution, anything to say like maybe Konami could make a sanctioned Rivalry of Warlords format with an official banned decks or cards for players to follow at events and locals to get that a more lively scene, rather than fixing the pricing scheme and printing pattern of cards. Instead, we must band together as a community and outlaw Josh from having opinions at all. That man is no longer allowed to speak on things unless YCS, he is of course voicing an opinion that I agree with, and that's something I think everyone can get behind. Because that way we'll all be happier, or at the very least, I will be happier, and truly, what else matters than that? The new deck build pack, Justice Frontiers, has had its 3 main themes revealed this past week, following the sacred trio of archetype visual designs. We have, of course, the anime girl, who is a girl and also anime because Yu-Gi-Oh! We've got the dragon that's also a robot, putting 2 themes into one to make sure we hit those benchmarks we need to be hitting. And that, of course, allowed them to give us the absolute fever dream of card design, because who came up with cats that are parfaits, who let it be an entire deck, and how can we make that individual the lead designer for all cards moving forward? Very little is known about the decks. We know that the dragon one is fusion themed, which is safe and predictable. The anime girl is Xyz themed, and the peak of all art is of course light beast synchro monsters, which tends to do well with the ancient fairy dragon support based on the fact that that new support uses light beasts and synchros. So there's copium. As is always the case, we only know 1 monster revealed from each, or more accurately, 1 card revealed from each. So if you lividly hate dragons or anime girls, you can cope that maybe this will be more like a Caesar Valius or Memento Big Fuck Dragon type of design, where the dragon-like monsters were featured on the pack, but the archetypes themselves were not dragon-focused in any grand scheme. But we all know that this is Yu-Gi-Oh!, so do not get your hopes up. Which is why I'm terrified of the cat parfaits. Last time I got excited about a deck because of its art style exclusively was Fluon de Reese, and frankly I've never been more let down by a deck's play style compared to its art design than Flu. Not to mention, what if this is just a one-off? What if the wacky goofy card design cats are just a 1-card thing and the rest of it's just the crab that's floating up in the background there? We won't know until they reveal more, so all you can do is speculate, and people hoping for an archetype of anime men instead of girls can still hold out that copium as always, because maybe the girl's just a one-off. Maybe it's surrounded by an army of dudes. Some people would like that. And in a quick bit of news, there's an upcoming YCS Japan, which is my favorite subtitle for events. Come on down to Japan, because it's happening in Japan. And if you might be wondering, well, when is this happening? Japan. Nothing else needs to be said. Come on down to Japan. Come on down to the Michael Bay themed prom happening tonight. When? Tonight. Where? Tonight. Either way, this is taking place in Tokyo, because what are countries if not their major metropolitan areas, and it's happening in April. But what's notable here is, of course, the new sleeves and playmats participants can get for taking part at the event. For anime girl fans, we've got a new Malice playmat with what could be original art, but is actually almost certainly just art for an upcoming card they'll be getting in a future set. And Dragon Rulers are getting a mat and sleeves as well, which both just look really good for fans of these decks/cards, and seem to be an easy win for Konami to include and give out at events, like you might hope they would do with the TCG. However, that isn't going to happen, and we all know that to be the case. So I'm really here just to tell you about some sick eBay finds to waste money on if you're really desperate for Malice or Dragon Ruler mats, and then you can watch the Japanese company behind the Japanese game you play continue to not give a fuck about you, because you are not Japan. Truly a time-honored tradition. Master Duel players may have noticed running into fewer copies of Maxx in the last month or so, which is how I would start this story if it were an actual news piece and I were trying to compose a halfway decent lead to hook the audience. However, this channel is a joke, and I don't care, and also you haven't been seeing less Maxx. As a matter of fact, you've probably already taken to the comments to tell me that with Molcharmies in the game, it feels like you're seeing more Maxx, because what else are the Molcharmies except Maxx 2, 3, and 4? But the data for the most played cards as published by Master Duel does show that not only has the bug usage dropped, it's now only the 2nd most played card in the game, behind Ash Blossom. That's right, the bug is now in only roughly 88% of decks. Healthy. It's tempting to attribute this to the Molcharmies, but this is data pulled from before their release, so it's not actually the release of alternatives that caused the drop in play. More sensible people than I will argue it's because of things like Tenpai and the fact that you want to see the cards that can stop Tenpai immediately before letting them get their field spell and their battle phase where they're just immune once they make the 10, so it's more important to actually see something that stops them than to just watch your hand grow in size before they OTK you. That seems sensible acceptable to me, but what do I know? Maybe it's just bad kids being bad and not playing it. Get nay-nayed, idiots. I said a card is slightly less with 90% of play rate as a decline in use because it's technically true. And the reality is this entire segment only exists for me to include the tease at the beginning of the video. What is even happening? And that's the question the player base is asking about our next story. What is even happening? Supreme Darkness drops next week, bringing 10 Yi cards to Sword Soul players, Speedroid cards to whoever plays that deck, and extenders to a deck that stopped needing extenders when they got their first extender 98 extenders ago. But more than that, it brings a twist to the card game no one saw coming, because there's a mistranslation of a card for the TCG, and it seems that it's just going to be a thing. Primite Dragon Ether Barrel, or however I was supposed to say that, is a very good card for the Primite engine, and players in the OCG know that it has an effect to let it add itself to the hand from your graveyard, so long as you have a normal monster in your grave or on your field during your standby phase. But the confirmed text on the English card from packs that have been opened says that it happens during the standby phase, which means it can happen during both players' turns, which is a buff to the card. And while the TCG is no stranger to getting cards printed incorrectly on their first go, shoutouts to Performer Pal Pendulum Sorcerer, Altergeist Manifestation, Altergeist Hextia, Topologic Zeraboros, Incredible Ecclesia, and Aluber for getting all of their effects wrong at jump. But where this one's different is the official card database has the incorrect effect text listed in the database. Typically, when they get a card wrong, they include the correct text in the database and then run through with a reprint sooner than later and just be like, guys, we got it wrong. You all just have to inherently know this now. Good luck telling this to someone who does not pay attention to the game. It's been a sick policy. It's worked so well. This means that either Konami literally does not give a fuck, or that they want the card to work this way and have just gone against the OCG. Copium enthusiasts will tell you that this means that there will need to be a fix and a reprint will be coming sooner than later to correct the error, but the absolute lack of communication from Konami, as always, means that it'll be left as is for the foreseeable future, meaning Supreme Darkness is mildly more interesting of a set than it was 12 days ago, for whatever that's worth to you. And some fantastic news for competitive players. Your cries have been heard, and the prizing situation is about to be fixed. Now, we already know that players aren't getting Nintendo Switches anymore. No, we've upgraded to the Steam Deck. But Nintendo has revealed the Nintendo Switch 2, revealing the next 8 years of prize support for YCS winners. The Nintendo Switch 2 will exist and play Nintendo games, and is also not made by Konami, making it a very fitting thing for them to be giving to us when we win events, which I say the word we as if I am at all involved in this conversation. This is terrific news for players like Pack, who can continue to grow their literal throne of Nintendo Switches, and irrelevant news for everyone else, because it's the Nintendo Switch and it exists. So to make a natural and logical conclusion to this story, we now hard pivot to the Dark Magician Girl gummies that my friend sent me a picture of and said, hey, if you need something to talk about, there's this. He found the picture online. I have no idea where it was located. I have no idea where you can get this, and I don't assume that these are edible gummies in the sense of marijuana, in the sense of THC, but they do exist, and now you know about them. So you can go on the quest for Dark Magician Girl gummies and an endless supply of Nintendo Switch 2s from God's given company, Nintendo, given to you by Konami. It's great. I love it. Fantastic news. And so that wraps it up for this week's update. As always, I've been your host, Bing Jingus. Thanks for watching, and feel free to like and subscribe. Not only will you help the number go up, but you'll be impressing your smoking Italian wife, and you'll become a true duelist. And maybe, just maybe, we'll get to see what it is that happens to the mid-range Yu-Gi-Oh player next week, because I'm still packing, baby. This shit's not going away anytime soon.